Hey, welcome back. So I have my drawing. It's on 8.5 by 11, an 8.5 by 11 canvas. So the width is 8.5 inches and the height is 11 inches. Now I would like to show you how to use the shape tool. And I'm going to make a grid. So I'm going to change the name of my drawing from drawing one to grid. And I'm going to make a 10 by 10 grid. I'm going to call it 10 by 10 grid. Now, in order to make a grid, we're going to have to use shapes. So I'm going to introduce you to our shape tool. So up here, where there's the circle and the square, we have our shape tool. So if you click on that, you actually have a lot of options of different shapes, arrows, callouts, even some mathematical symbols to choose from. So I'm going to go to shapes, and if you actually hover over top with your mouse, it will name your shapes for you. We have a rectangle, we have an oval, we have a Pac-Man, oh no, a pie, we have a heptagon, a hexagon, an octagon, a decagon, and a dodecagon. It's a 12-sided one. We also have fun things like hearts and smiley faces. But for the sake of this grid, I'm going to choose our rectangle shape. So I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to make a rectangle. So I'm going to find a starting spot somewhere on my canvas. It doesn't matter where because I can always move it afterwards. I'm going to hold down the click and drag it out. Now, when I'm dragging it out like this, it is turning into a rectangle because the height and the width are not staying at the same ratio. But if I hold down shift, it keeps this ratio equal. So the height and the width grows together at an equal rate when you hold down shift. Very important to know because if you're not holding down shift, it's very difficult to get a perfect square. But if you're holding down shift while you're dragging it bigger or smaller, then you get a perfect square every time. So I'm going to make my square about this big because I want to get 10 across. So I'm going to start with this. And I'm not worried if it's too big or too small because I can always change it. That's the beauty of working with digital rather than pencil and paper. It's easy to change and easy to undo. So now that I have my square, I'm going to change the fill color of my square. I can change it to any color here. And if I don't see what I like here, I can actually choose a custom color somewhere on here. But for the sake of my grid, I want it to be empty. So I'm going to choose fill color, transparent, and my line color is going to stay black. So that's the perimeter of my square. But I'm going to make it a little thicker. Let's try with 3 pixels thick, just so it shows up a little better. That looks pretty good. Now this is one square, but I need 100 for my 10 by 10 grid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the square. You can just click on it, or what I often do is drag, click and drag and select like that. That's handy if you have more than one to select. So I want another square exactly like this one. Now I could go into my shape tool and make another one that's exactly like this one, but that would take a bit too long. So I'm just going to select it, Command C for copy, Control C if you're using Windows, Command V for paste, Control V if you're using Windows. So now I have a square that's exactly the same as this one. Now, if you notice when I'm clicking on the square and dragging it to move it around, you see these red lines come up. These are guiding lines. When I see that red line come up there, I know that they can connect and that this one is on the same be an equal row, I guess you could say. When it's up here, it's a little bit higher. It's down here, it's a little bit lower. But when I see that red line, I know it's right in the spot that I want it to be. So I'm going to use that guiding line. I'm going to connect it. And I'm going to wait for the other red guiding line to show up there so that I know they're right next to each other. So now I have two squares part of my grid. But I need to get to 10, so I'm going to copy. This time I'm selecting both shapes by clicking and dragging my select tool. Selecting both. Again, I'm going to Command C, Command V. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2. Now I want to do that again. I've already copied it. I'm just going to paste it again with Command V. Now if I'm not used to the shortcuts, I can actually go in through here and edit, go under edit and paste. That's another way to do it, but that takes a bit longer. So 2 times 3 is 6. I'll press Command V again. 2 times 4 is 8. I'll press Command V again. 2 times 5 is 10. So this is looking pretty good. I'm going to select all of it, but it's a little bit off center, and that really bothers me. So I'm going to move all of my squares over until I get that red line. Where is that red line? This red line lets me know that my shape is centered. So now it's centered, and all is right in the universe. All right. So I have 10 squares, but I need to do a 10 by 10 grid. So instead of just my 10 squares, I'm going to have 10 of these. 10 times 10 is 100. So I'm going to select all of them, just like this. Click, hold, and select. I'll press Command C again and Command V again. Copy and paste is a very handy thing when you're making digital artwork or digital designs. All right, now we have 10 times 2 is 20. 10 times 3. Again, I'm using these guiding lines, these red guiding lines. They're keeping everything together. 10 times 4 is 40. 10 times 5 is 50. So I'm 50% done my grid. Halfway there. 10 times 6 is 60. 60% done. If my grid were a decimal, it would be 0.6. We have, how many do we have? 70% done. 80% done. Again, I'm pressing Command V because I've copied and pasted. 90% done. 3, 6, 9, and 100% done. So I like the way my grid looks. If, for example, I wanted it to be a bit smaller or a bit bigger, again, I'm using my select tool. And if you have another one actually selected at the time, you can either go up and click on your select tool, or you can just press escape. That will bring up your select tool. So I press escape, I have my select tool. If I want this to be a different size, I can select everything like that, and I can actually, holding down shift to maintain its squareness, I can actually shrink it down if I want to make a smaller grid, or I can make a bigger grid while holding down shift. All right, so this looks like a pretty good size. I'm going to make sure that it's centered, and there we have a grid. All right, thanks for watching. Take care.